watch what they.
Okay.
The Diet Coke the Diet Coke makes its debut tonight. Hello, Diet Coke.
I drink Diet Coke all day long, sir. All day long.
You know, there was a article, I think it was in the New York Times many years ago, saying that Pepsi-Cola was the Republican drink.
Yeah, well, it was.
Coke.
It was because Don Kendall was a big friend of the Republican Party.
Yeah. And
I didn't know that.
But Woodruff was a friend of Ike's, and it's the reason why the CDC is the only major federal agency that's not in the DC Metroplex.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
You learn something new every day with you, Louis.
Louis, I'm very impressed. God bless you.
Thank you.
Arnie McNamara misses RC Cola. RC Cola was actually pretty good.
I'm going to throw one out at you. White Rock.
Not the diet RC Cola. That was garbage, but the regular
Royal Crown. Do you remember CNC? It was for people like us who couldn't afford the good stuff.
Oh, that was bodega stuff, like tropical
CNC.
fantasy.
My mother drove that company out of business, I believe.
Of course she did. Of course she did.
Nobody was better at getting
Ben, somebody just wrote to you on YouTube. Hi, Ben. I'm glad I found you. I remember watching you as a kid. Jeff Deal is looking forward to the show. Ben, somebody said hello.
I'm glad. I need every friend I can get. Thank you very much.
I think we all do at this point, and we're a minute away from starting.
Wait, where's Glenn? Where is Glenn?
I don't know.
It's always at 6:59.
What do you need?
I want him here to do anything I want him to do. He works for me. I pay him.
Ben, we're on YouTube, yeah.
Be that as it may.
Okay, hey Brad, Brady, hey Translucent, hey everybody. We'll be starting this in...
You told me to wash, to clean your...
I know, not when I'm here, sir. I need your company to help me.
You told me, sir, I don't know. I'm only following your orders.
Okay, God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you, sir.
We are so professional here at the World According to Ben Stein, but that's what makes us so much fun, and we're going to start it in 2 seconds. Hold on a second.
You're recording, are you not?
Yes, I am. That's what I just did, Ben Boychuk. Thank you. And I want to welcome everybody back to the World According to Ben Stein. I'm Judah Friedman, and I want to thank everybody for joining us.
Wait a minute. Where did that end? Wait. Where did that end and Judah Friedman come from? It's supposed to be the World According to Ben Stein.
I did say that.
It's supposed to say, I am Judah Friedman. I am the host, moderator, and producer.
I did say I'm Judah Friedman.
Okay, never mind.
I said, okay, welcome back to the World According to Ben Stein. That is you. I'm Judah Friedman, the moderator.
And
Thanks
more than that, the host, producer, genius behind it.
Yes, thank you. And if this is your first time, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at the World According to Ben Stein. Like us on Facebook at the World According to Ben Stein, and follow us at Parler at Ben Stein. Tell your friends, tell your loved ones, tell your enemies. Just tell them, damn it. And joining us once again is the other Ben, Ben Boychuk, managing editor of American Greatness. Good to see you again, Ben.
It's good to be back under the circumstances, even. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and quite the circumstances. And welcome, of course, our resident historian and Nixon trivia king, Louis Esoteric Fine.
A real genius, an extraordinary genius.
Good to see you, Louis.
That's great inflation for you.
And and I just want just have to start with this because everybody out there is going nuts right now, is frightened, and we've been dealing with for the past 4.5 years. We've been dealing with the phony Russian collusion scandal, lives ruined, Ben, a fruitless special counsel investigation, endless lies and slanders, in the media, impeachment, all in the course of 4 years. And we're not allowed to investigate an obvious election coup, as you brought up to me today, for a few weeks. We have a coup on our hands, and we are not allowed to bring up.
It's actually happened in America. A coup d'etat actually happened in America.
Yeah.
I mean, in your lifetime, do you ever think you would see a coup to this extent?
I didn't think I'd see one as bald-faced and unashamed as this one. Theft, clear theft, like a bank robber walking into a bank with a shotgun, saying, by the way, everybody, why don't you videotape me doing this, walking off with a great deal of money, then going into the Bentley dealer, shooting the Bentley dealer, taking the car, and then walking down the street saying, or driving down the street saying, I'm rich, look at me, look at my money, look at my Bentley dealer. This has been an outrage where there's no shame in this society anymore, even for people who steal an election. Terribly sad, terribly sad. Yet something miraculous has happened, which is that even during this, American business, not owned by a state, actually owned by human individuals and groups, is still chugging along, providing us food, gasoline, electricity, all kinds of things that we need. So it's miraculous to me that in the midst of a coup d'etat, the society runs so far fairly well. Yes, we have lost freedom of speech. Yes, we have lost freedom of thought, but there's plenty to eat.
Oh boy.
And yeah, go ahead, Ben Boychuk. I see you.
Well, I will mostly concur. And I want to point something out, a couple things out. We still have some free speech to the extent that we have it on Parler. It hasn't been co-opted yet.
Yes, very true, very true.
But the other thing, I want to make a point before we go too much farther, which is to differentiate between the tone of the conversation that we had on Tuesday night and the tone of the conversation we're likely to have tonight. But there's one thing that it has in common. On Tuesday night, we were fairly optimistic. We weren't entirely sure how it was going to go. Judah was fairly pessimistic at the beginning of the hour, and somewhat positive by the end of the hour. And then as the night went on, we had reason to be pessimistic again. After the last few days worth of news and the news today, in which basically the Associated Press usurped the Electoral College and declared a victor in the presidential race, we're quite pessimistic. What both of these things have in common, or ought to have in common, and this is something that I tried to emphasize on Parler this afternoon, is that we must not despair. Despair is a sin. Despair counsels inactivity and surrender. And this is something we must not do. We have to figure out, first of all, it's very confusing right now and everything is unclear and there's a lot that can still happen. But regardless of what happens, despair is not and never shall be an option. If anything, what this tells us is politics is not, it reminds us anyway, or it should remind us, politics is not a spectator sport. Politics is about action. Action, not sitting back and living our lives on social media, not relying on people on Fox News telling us what we may or may not want to hear, although that's clearly changed. It's action. We're obliged as self-governing citizens to act. And, you know, we still have options. What those options are exactly, some of them are not yet clear. But to say it's over, like over, is wrong. And so I want to emphasize to everybody watching this, and I think everybody on this panel would agree with me, despair is a sin, and we cannot indulge in that sin.
All right, we'll let Ben Stein actually respond to that because
I could not agree more. I was being visited this afternoon by a young woman from Korea who's very, very interested in the American political system. She's a student at Pepperdine, a school I'm very closely connected with. And she said, this can't be happening in America. She said, I feel sick about it. And I said, well, but you are starting out as a presence on the internet, a very, very teeny, tiny presence, to be sure, tiny little presence. but it'll grow. And I said, Winston Churchill said, a man, and he might have said a woman too, in his 20s, 30s is obliged to act, to get into the arena and do something, not sit back and complain or whine, which I do a lot of, by the way, but get into the arena and act. And Nixon used to say that all the time. The heroes are not the spectators or the critics. The heroes are the people in the arena. And we can all get in the arena, and I think we should. And I'm hoping it will. I live in the heart of Beverly Hills, in a house I can't even remotely afford anymore, but in a house, a neighborhood house way beyond what I can afford. Anyway, and around us are many, many Trump demonstrators in trucks, beeping with big banners, and also a fair number of African-American young people doing what I'm guessing is some kind of African-American tribal dance. And back and forth around the street, one group honking and shouting at the other, some people honking, the African-Americans shouting. And I said to my wife, or I think someone said this, maybe Judith did, it's like civil war here. It's like civil war. And we are, whether we would like it or not, we're in it. Whether we want to be in it or not, we're in it.
Yeah, but so people understand, I'm not going to disclose Ben and my location, or Lewis's for that matter, but we're in an area right now where there are a lot of horns blasting, a lot of helicopters overhead, and we are in the heart of a certain part of a town that ends in the name Hills. And there are a massive amount of Trump supporters out there.
Massive.
And I just want to tell everybody, I just want to give people an update. Don't give up, like Ben said, don't despair. Parler had over 1 million new users today. It's the #1 downloaded app. So if people having issues with Parler, that is the biggest reason, is because people are deciding to leave Facebook, to leave Twitter, to leave these places where we're being censored. And so if you're having a rough time with Parler and it's a little slow, just go easy, because it's going to come. And on that, I know Lewis had a very important question he wanted to ask you, sir.
Yeah, this is for Ben Stein.
Yes, sir.
We can just start with Vietnam and go forward, and I'm going to be very quick.
We
were told to believe the body counts. We were told to believe the Gulf of Tonkin. We were told to believe WMDs. We were told to believe companies were too big to fail. We were told to believe that we have systemic racism. We are told still we have.
Now it's called systematic racism.
Well, no, it was systematic. Now it's systemic.
No, but Biden just today called it systematic.
Well, he doesn't know the difference between the two. Be that as it may, and now we're told to believe the outcome of this election. When do we stop believing?
It's a great question.
Very good question. Well, I've stopped believing some time ago, and certainly don't believe now. But look, we don't even know. The government hasn't even said who won. So do I believe Fox News? Well, I love Fox News. I used to appear on it extremely frequently, and I love Fox News. But I don't believe their count is necessarily true. The Associated Press has been around forever. I don't necessarily believe they're true. I bet if you went back through their announcements and predictions over the years and centuries, probably by now, you would find a great many that were not true. So I don't believe any of this. And I certainly don't believe that we should be counting the votes in states where there was clear, unequivocal fraud, which we discussed last night. Unequivocal fraud, not a possible allegation of fraud, real, true fraud, where the results can only be explained by fraud. We're still counting those votes as legitimate. That's insane. My friend from Korea said to me, how can this be happening? I said, because they're counting the votes of people who don't exist. They're counting the people of votes people who never existed, and also counting the votes of people who are 200 years old. So, I mean, something is seriously wrong.
Let me ask you, I just have a follow-up there.
Yes, sir.
You can argue with the religious, including the politically religious. You can debate people of different religions and within religions, Christians, Catholics, Jews, and Christians. How do you have a civil conversation or attempt to reason with someone who has blind faith in the outcome of this election?
Do you remember the album Blind Faith?
I know nothing about music.
Okay.
I do.
Well, it was a great album cover. Anyway,
That's a great album.
I don't have blind faith in anything anymore. I don't have blind faith in Mr. Trump. I certainly don't have blind faith in Mr. Biden, who, as Tucker Carlson so brilliantly said, is simply a media hologram created by big business and the left working together. He doesn't really exist. He does not really exist. He exists only as a puppet of these of powers much greater than he is. And those are scary powers. But I don't believe anything about blind faith anymore. And I must say this election has been a very devastating experience. But as I tell Judah all the time, it was even worse in 1974 when Nixon was kicked out of office for no reason at all. And you, Lewis, who are really, really, really well educated about history, really, really, really well educated about history, even you, I think, cannot point out a single really serious crime that Nixon committed under the rubric of Watergate. I mean, trivia, yes. Serious stuff, no.
No, and somebody actually asked a question, and it's very sad, Ben, the Fox News of all our youths or days is no longer that same Fox News. It's just not to many people. Many people are outraged that Fox News called Arizona when nobody else called Arizona, and we still don't have the counts. But somebody had a question, and I don't think you know this, but I think you'll find out Monday. But I want people on YouTube to see we are responding. And it was, do you think Trump has the team in place to fight this? And,
if he doesn't, he's an idiot, because he should have by now, in fact, months ago, have assembled a team of absolutely top-notch trial lawyers and investigators to go over this entire subject. I mean, if he had, we Republicans do deserve to lose this election if we don't have a major team of major lawyers, and I mean really smart ones, going over everything having to do with this and filing every possible kind of paper you can file. When you're a criminal, if you're in prison, you file a different lawsuit every day. We're not criminals. We have access to great deal of money. Why aren't we filing a new lawsuit every day in every state and every county having to do with the votes? In every state and in every county having to do with a new lawsuit every day. Eventually, if you throw enough of them against the wall, a few of them stick.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. That is Ben Stein, of course. And Ben Boychuk, can you please tell people how to find us?
Now more than ever, find us and subscribe to us on YouTube, as long as they'll have us. Like us on Facebook, even though Facebook is likely to become increasingly inhospitable. Nevertheless, like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein. And then sort of the refuge of social media for folks like us, Parler at Ben Stein.
I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. And Ben, I want to touch on something Lewis brought up, which is, and take it a little further, which is, how could any of us have any faith in the Republican Party?
A saying, which I'm sure some of you know and some don't, faute de mieux, which is, we don't have anything better. We wish we had something better, but we don't. What we need is a balls out Republican Party. We don't have that. We have a balls out president. We love him, but we do not have a balls out Republican Party. It is, to me, now I think my fellow Ben over here said it's a sin to be despairing. I would say it's been, if in fact the Republicans do not have major legal teams in place in every state filing lawsuits already, that's a sin. I mean, we really do deserve to lose everything if we can't do that. I mean, that's a joke. It's so easy to do. I mean, my wife and I are both lawyers, and we could start filing lawsuits ourselves.
We know somebody else that can.
Yes, our friend Larry Klayman could. He could and should. And I mean, it's crazy that they don't have top-notch legal teams already in place.
So I'm sure he does, and we'll find out more about that on Monday when I think Trump is going to go, as you said, balls out, and go scorched earth on everybody. But I want to get back to Ben Boychuk on this topic of, and I think Lewis just raised a great point about believing, because I look at these Republicans and I have a really hard time right now. Like, where are they? It's like everybody is MIA. I want to put them on milk cartons.
I have a point, and I want to make a follow-up after that. Yep. And one of the things is, Ben Stein, you were there for the catastrophe of Watergate. And at that time, you know, there was a big to-do about, you know, Nixon regarded the media as an enemy.
And they were.
They were, and they are, and they remain so. And, but the point I'd like to throw at you is this. 20 years ago, which was Bush v. Gore and that whole thing, with the highly contentious 2000 presidential election, which came down to 500 or so votes in Florida, you still had some trust in the mainstream press. It was beginning to ebb considerably, but you still had some. Now there's really virtually no trust in the mainstream press. But my I guess my question for you is, well, like a question, more a statement / question. If we were living in something like the high trust society that we even had still in 74 when Watergate went down, do you think this would even be happening? Because I don't think so.
Well, may I say that in 74, I guarantee you the people I worked with in the executive office building next to the White House didn't have much trust in the press.
But Americans did.
My father had no trust in the press at all. And my mother, God rest her soul, would have committed murder against some of the more famous journalists involved in this case, cheerfully and without a second thought. But I think there was some belief in the media, but not that much. But look, that's all we have. We have a gossipy neighbor shouting at us all day long over a megaphone, like crazy, never stops. It is the Nazi state, the Soviet state, over and over again in the media. There's only one voice. It's the voice of the left. They say it over and over and over again. We are very, very lucky to have this platform, very blessed. How long we'll have it, I'm not sure. The powers that be will certainly want to take it away from us. Please watch now while you can. I don't think there's much trust in the press now, and I don't think there was much trust in the press then. But again, on the left, there was complete trust in them because the left was the press. The left controlled the press, and the left controlled the Congress. And the Republicans then, if you want to talk about pussies, wow, were the Republicans in Congress pussies? It was unbelievable. It was a joke how weak they were. Just a joke.
Well, certainly, I mean, the media certainly has done a fine job of delegitimizing themselves. My other thing, the follow-up point I wanted to make, a question I kind of wanted to ask is, we were talking about balls out Republicans. I mean, I think one of the things I think we might be able to agree upon, I think we can agree upon, is that the establishment Republican Party never liked Trump, hated Trump. Mitch McConnell got a lot out of Trump, and Trump got some things out of Mitch, judges maybe, but beyond that, there was never, on the establishment side of things, the McConnell, Paul Ryan, Jeb Bush wing, which remains very powerful, very prominent in the establishment side of things, never cared for Trump, and that's probably the reason why you're not seeing very few prominent Republicans stepping up and speaking out, because they're happy to be rid of them. But maybe what they don't understand in terms of balls out anything, political courage in any meaningful way, is that we're in the middle of a realignment. And that the idea that you're going to just write off 71 odd million Trump voters and think that they're going to come back happily into the fold and embrace the status quo of, say, Mitt Romney and the late John McCain is idiocy. And yet that seems to be what they're thinking. And so, I mean,
your point is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But again, if in fact they're being passive because they don't like his personality or something about him, they're making a terrible mistake, because we're not going to get another candidate who appeals to the people in the pickup trucks the way he does. There's nobody I see out there who's anything like that. I mean, we're not going to get a personality as powerful as Donald Trump's. At least I don't see one on the horizon anywhere whatsoever. And we are making a terrible mistake not supporting him to the last man. And I will add, I think had the Republicans in Congress in 1974 supported Nixon to the last man, fought to the last round, I don't think Nixon would have been kicked out. They gave up very, very early. Why our Republicans don't say we're going to do everything we can to keep Trump there is a mystery to me, except, again, they're not very smart. Long ago, Mr. Nixon, I'm writing a book about Nixon, so I'll tell you this one story about Nixon, which is that Nixon told, my father was a much, much, much higher official at the White House than I was, no comparison. And my father used to have long talks with Nixon. And what Mr. Nixon said at one point to my father was, you have to remember, Herb, that your average Republican congressman isn't fit to be dog catcher. And that was so incredibly true then. And I think there's some truth to it now. And if they were out there fighting their heads off, I think we would have a very different attitude in America today.
And before we get to Lewis, I just want to explain, because Ben Stein's father is a true American hero. There's actually a law named after him. It's the Herbert Stein law. Ben, if you could tell people that law.
If something cannot go on forever, it will stop.
And he was actually the chairman of the
Council of Economic Advisors.
Council of Economic Advisors. He was a true American hero. He helped save Israel's economy. He helped save the U.S. economy. He was an absolute genius and a great man. And that's Ben's dad. And America and other places owe a big, great debt to him. So that's.
Well, you're very, very, very kind. It touches me very much.
And I speak the truth. Lewis, I know you have a couple questions.
I've had many laws passed against me. Meghan McCain's law.
What's that? What is that law?
He's kidding.
It's still in. It's got to conference. Question: what is fascism? Because I've heard a lot about it, that we have a fascistic president, that we've just concluded an election that will result in the overthrow of a despot. What is fascism? Do we have a fascist president?
Of course not. Fascism refers to an ancient Roman weapon, which was an axe surrounded by a group of reeds or bamboo sticks or some kind of sticks. I don't know what kind of sticks. And that symbol, that was used as a weapon because you could take off the sticks and whip someone with them. But then, and if he was a really bad person or considered really bad, you could chop his head off with the axe. But that was adopted as the symbol of Mussolini's fascist party in Italy, and they came to power approximately in 1922. And Hitler actually was a great admirer of them and modeled himself on them, called his party also a fascistic party. But in America, there never has been a fascist party. And now a fascist in America is anyone that the left doesn't like. It's that simple. But of course, nobody in America, except a few people, knows any history, so don't really know what a fascist is. I got a letter from a young woman I know, a very, very sweet young woman who used to be a waitress at a restaurant I go to a lot in North Idaho, and she said, well, what about Trump's being fascist? And I said, that's a joke. It's like saying he's a man from the moon, and he's the least fascist person in the world.
But it goes to show you what Lewis is bringing up is that everything they've called Trump, they are themselves. Every single thing. I mean, if you look at on social media, what AOC and what all these people are calling for, I mean, there are Republicans, there are Trump supporters that are scared tonight. They're scared of, losing jobs. They're scared of online attacks. They're scared of all these things. And Ben, you've been subjected to this sort of hate in the past from people. How have you gotten through it?
Have I gotten through it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't read social media, first of all. I have a young woman who handles a very modest but wonderful social media account with me. I have a very handsome, capable man to my left who handles this incredibly wonderful show and everything else on Parler. He's a great genius, and he can handle it genius-like. His name is Judah Friedman, and Judah M. Friedman. And so I don't deal with it at all. I get very little hate mail. I did at one time open Facebook and look at Facebook, but all it was people sending recipes and pictures of their grandchildren, and occasionally a letter from someone saying, "We hate you, we're going to come."
No, but I'm more referring to, Ben, the loss of when you lost work because you.
Oh, well, that's been a catastrophe.
That's what I'm referring to.
No, I lost the most. Here are the ways I lost work. One, I lost my job at Comedy Central, even though I, at the time, had either the most successful show on Comedy Central or the second most successful, because I clearly advocated pro-life. And when I did that on camera, one of the people from Comedy Central who was there said, "I have a really funny joke. If I do it again, no jokes, please." I said, "Madam, it was not a joke." So I was fired pretty soon after that. I had a column for, I don't remember, 4 or 5 years for the New York Times. I don't remember the exact number of years. I was fired from that for hosting a TV show. Sorry, I beg your pardon, a documentary called Expelled, which talked about how anybody who questions Darwinism is expelled from teaching or even being any kind of teacher at any of the universities in America, even though Darwinism is a total hypothesis, never proved, nothing in it factually based. And when they approached me from the New York Times and said, "Well, you can't seriously, what are you saying? God, there's a God?" And I said, "Of course there's a God, and God is the one who created all this. Not you, not evolution. Didn't come from a grain of sand. God did it." And I was fired almost immediately after that. And anyway, I had quite a successful career as a scriptwriter, and that was terminated basically because at one point I wrote a script about a Russian Soviet when there was still a Soviet Union, Soviet takeover of the United States of America, and the guy who was the producer and director, said my name could not appear in the credits, even though I had written the goddamn thing, an outline of the thing, not the script for sure. And he said, "I will not have anyone who's associated with Richard Nixon on the screen near my name." So anyway, that's the kind of thing that's happened to me in Hollywood.
And that's what everybody, sir, is terrified of right now with being associated with Donald Trump.
Right, but I can tell you the viciousness of the left, towards anyone who doesn't agree with them or kiss their ass, is boundless and unimaginable.
And we'll get to how do you fight back after, because like Ben said, we're not going to live in despair, and we're going to figure this out of how to not let that affect us. And
we shall overcome.
And keep on keeping on. So Ben Boychuk, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. Ben Boychuk, tell people how to find us, please.
Well, you're watching us on YouTube most likely, and thank you for doing that. I think we probably have a number of new viewers tonight, which thank you very, very much for that. Please subscribe to the channel. We will keep you updated as best as we can. If you're still on Facebook, and God knows people are abandoning that sinking ship in droves today from what I've been able to see, but nevertheless, if you're still on Facebook, like us at The World According to Ben Stein. But if you found refuge on Parler, then by all means follow us at Ben Stein.
And I want to
God bless you, sir.
And I want to welcome back everybody to The World According to The World According.
I want to have some more questions from Lewis. Lewis is so goddamn smart. I want to have some questions from him.
I'm heavily medicated tonight. Depakote, lithium, it's whatever I could find.
You are taking lithium? I do not believe
and
it.
Depakote and cough syrup. Well, it's whatever I could liberate today from various pharmacies, apothecaries.
Hey, Ben, you asked for it.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, Ben.
Yes.
Sorry, Ben or Lewis, ask a question.
I'm Lewis. During the near death, the final stages of the of whatever that would be on the Kubler-Ross scale of the Cold War, there was a phenomenon known as anti-Semitism without Jews in Poland, because they became quote unquote Zionists, even though they weren't Jews, observant, or had any Jewish lineage. But they became what happens when you run out of Trumpsters, Trump supporters, Republicans.
Oh, they won't run out. They won't run out.
My point is when you run out of the actual
they won't run
people.
out. Sir, with the great respect, I am seeing something here in Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, tonight, just tonight, that I never thought I'd see in my life. That nothing, Biden has been declared president by several media organizations. There are African American people doing their dances, their traditional dances in the street. And all around them are Trump supporters in trucks with big Trump flags, beeping their horns. I took a detour, and they're all around where I took my detour, the Trump supporters beeping their horns. I never thought there would be giant, spontaneous demonstrations of Trump supporters in Beverly Hills and West Hollywood. I never thought I'd see that. The Republican Party is, as Ben Butchik so aptly said, being realigned dramatically to become the party of the working people. A young woman was at my house and she was asking me about wearing a ring on her thumb. And I said, I don't think so. I said, but if you want to, of course, go ahead. But I said to her, that's a working class way of wearing a ring. And she she didn't understand what that meant. But Trump has drawn in the working class that I think never was expected to be Republican in an enthusiastic way. She has drawn in the working class.
I agree with you, but
yeah. I just want to say quickly, it's not just the working class, Ben. He's actually brought in the Latinos. He's brought in the African American community.
Well, I don't think he's done that yet. I mean, he's telling me he has, but I don't. How much of the African American?
It's very small, but he got the more people, or as a percentage, people of color voted for him as a percentage at the highest rate since 1960.
And may I ask a question respectfully? What is meant by people of color? Because I mean, does that
anyone who doesn't look like Judah?
Okay. So does that include Asians? Does that include Hispanics?
Yes.
Because I know a lot of Asians. We have a lot of Asians working for us, and they're all solidly pro-Trump, all wildly pro-Trump. And I think Asians have a natural affinity for the Republican Party, but the African Americans, I think we still have ways to go with them, and we'll find somebody. But we haven't yet.
What I was going to say was this.
And I want to go to Ben Butchik, so go ahead, Ben.
No, I just want to add to that point. As far as the Latino vote goes, the Hispanic vote goes, anecdote is not data, but we got lots of data coming out from exit polls that Trump got tremendous Latino support in Florida and even in Texas.
Oh yeah,
even in Texas. But from my own personal experience, a Latina woman of my acquaintance, and I'm going to quote her exactly, and so pardon my language, but I love what she had to say. He's a thug. He's a baller. I don't give a fuck. I love him.
Great. I love it.
And if anybody's wondering why we got banned from YouTube, it's Ben Butchik. So thank you, Ben Butchik.
You're welcome.
And no, but Ben, I think he's opened up the tent more than any. I don't even want to call him. I mean, I don't believe there is a Republican Party anymore. I believe it's the party of Trump. And I never have understood why how you brought it up before, how stupid Republicans are. All they had to do was follow his lead. That's all they had to do, and they can't even do that correctly.
Well, I mean, I go back to what my friend Mr. Nixon said about them. But I mean, I've met some who are wonderful people, but I've met others who left me with shaking my head because I could not believe they held high office.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's as the lawyers would say, it calls for speculation. Put yourself and your fellow Yale Law School classmates, boxer briefs, Mrs. Clinton. You're watching all of this. Do you think she's watching this saying, I believe this nonsense, that this guy I beat in 2008, Joe Biden, really won by these numbers? You think she believes that?
Are you referring to Hillary? Who are you referring to?
Yeah, Mrs. Clinton, Secretary Clinton.
I don't think that I don't think that anyone in his or her right mind believes that this was a fair and square election. And whether or not Mrs. Clinton is included in that category, I'm not quite sure. But nobody believes this is. I mean, people are thoroughgoing Biden supporters. They believe it, sure. I mean, have you ever seen a movie? There are two movie versions, and also a book, of course, the best book ever of 1984. People will believe what they want to believe, and the party, which in this case is the Democratic Party plus the media plus African Americans, the party plus gay people, the party has decreed that they have to believe it, and that if you don't believe it, you're a fascist and a racist. So I think there are people who do believe it because it's the party line. I mean, the party line is, yes, what Judith said a few minutes ago, we've gotten rid of a despot. It's incredible. People will believe any effing thing if the party says it. The party is always right. There's a wonderful movie, an incredibly great movie called Downfall about the last days of Adolf Hitler. You've seen it, Ben Butchick, right? It's a great movie. Have you seen it, Lewis?
I cried at the end.
Lewis, come on, stop it.
No, it's great. It's great. I've seen it. Yes, I have.
And at one point, Ava Braun, Hitler's girlfriend, her brother or somebody or other says, you're going to die here in Berlin. You've got to leave. You've got to flee. You're going to die here. And he can't save you. And she says something, I can't say it in German. She says, but he is the Fuhrer, meaning no matter what anyone else says, he's the leader. You've got to follow him. I think the Democratic Party and this group we described earlier is the Fuhrer for some large number of Americans. They have to believe him. He is the Fuhrer.
As my mother would say,
that party is the Fuhrer.
He should plot. He should plot.
By the way, to people on YouTube, Lewis isn't actually on those medications. He's on different ones. If he was on those medications, they might be working. But Ben, I want to get back to this whole idea of a media coup and this what's going on, because people cannot grasp. And I think the hardest thing that people are having a hard time losing is okay. The fact that the media has called an election and we're not allowed to investigate for a couple weeks is frightening to the 70 million people that voted for the president. We can't grasp that thought.
No, we can't. No. That's why I said after Nixon was coup d'etat out in 1960 by John F. Kennedy and his thug friends, we sort of let it pass because nothing like that had ever happened before, and Nixon did not raise an issue about it because he was very much of a gentleman and did not want to start a fight about it. So that just passed. And then when Nixon was kicked out in '74, that was the media had built up such a firestorm of criticism of him over imaginary faults and wrongs that people said, oh, we've gotten rid of a guy who's a very bad guy. Now people are saying, wait a minute. This guy is a perfect, not just a good president, but a sensational president, as my friend Phil Demuth says, a sensational president is being cheated out of the election by a group of people we don't like. And we do not like the fact that these people who we don't like to start with are kicking out our president. There's going to be a lot of anger over this for a long, long time. This media coup d'etat is not going to pass quickly. As I said before, I've never seen a phenomenon like this phenomenon of the angry people in their pickup trucks driving around honking and waving flags, even walking down Santa Monica Boulevard, even walking along Sunset Boulevard, holding Trump flags, not afraid to carry them. I've never seen a phenomenon like that having to do with the Republican. If the Republican Party doesn't grasp that they are unbelievably lucky to have him as the standard bearer, they're making a gigantic mistake. They're unbelievably lucky to have him as their standard bearer.
Go for it, Ben Boychuk.
Because they still don't know what time it is.
Right.
And they don't know what time it is. They had an opportunity. 2016 was a wonderfully clarifying event, and a lot of people still don't see it or didn't want to see it, right?
Right. None so blind as those who will not see.
Right. And so, and incidentally, we should not merely blame the media for this, because I think not only we not blame them, we should blame the media, of course, but we should blame the way the media has gotten into bed with the Democratic establishment, the permanent bureaucracy, but also people within the Republican Party who simply found Trump distasteful, or as my my old boss, the late great Peter Collier, said, people who had aesthetic objections to Trump. And so here we are, and so, I just want to emphasize to people who may have just been joining us late or who might see this later, there is a realignment underway. And the things that we took for granted 8 years ago, 4 years ago even, don't take them for granted any longer. Things
well put, extremely well put, very well put indeed, very well put indeed. So yeah, I think we have an incredible opportunity here, and in many ways, this election has been, as you would say, a clarifying event that tells us we have a chance to grab real extraordinary power among the people, not just among the beautiful people, which the Democrats have, but among people who really work with their hands and with their brains and hands.
Yes.
And drive trucks. We have an opportunity to work with them. It's funny. I was in Beverly Hills today,
Yeah.
and there were people driving around Beverly Hills in pickup trucks with big Trump signs. I thought, wow, I live in Beverly Hills. I'm in there off Beverly Hills often. I haven't seen trucks in Beverly Hills, period, except for trucks fixing somebody's water heater or something. I haven't seen trucks in Beverly Hills at all. And now trucks are driving through there with big Trump signs on them. Something's happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man over there with a gun telling me I got to beware.
Got to stop now.
Right.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. Ben Boychuk, why don't you tell people how they could find us?
We'll get you in a minute, Lewis. You can follow us right here on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. We'll be here as long as humanly possible. We hope to grow a massive subscriber base. So please tell your friends and family and anybody else who gives a crap. Find us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube. And then when we're banned, we'll go someplace else.
Well, man, can I say something respectfully?
Yes.
I would say this is a channel for people who really love America.
Yes.
People who don't think it's a terrible place, who don't think it needs to be changed or smashed and pulverized and rebuilt in the image of some jungle warrior from the jungles of Africa. People who like it just as it is.
Yeah.
And agree with change, absolutely. Change. People work hard, improve their families, improve their own lives. Absolutely. Full equality under the law for everybody. Absolutely, without question. No barring people on account of their race or sex. Absolutely. But smashing the society, pulverizing it, then putting it under the control of the bureaucrats. No. We at Parler, it's just this show in particular, are dedicated to letting people have freedom. I was thinking as I was driving over here to my own house, trying to get through the police lines and the lines of honking trucks and the lines of African Americans doing dances in the street. I was thinking, everything that's been happening in the last several years is about taking away control from Americans. Environmentalism, take away control over people's lives and their cars and houses and so forth. COVID, a way of taking away over control. One of the people who works for me is a Filipino pastor, Baptist pastor. I was with him when he called the police right after the shutdown started in California, the Bolshevik Republic of California. And I heard the policeman saying, you cannot have a service at your church, even if there are only 5 people. 5 people, you can't have a service at your church. And it was just saying, taking away control over people's lives. Again, this election, your vote doesn't mean anything. The media's vote means everything. Taking away people's control over their own lives. COVID, lock people up, tell them to wear masks. It's not to me at all clear that this isn't at least partly a way of taking away people's control. I don't doubt that COVID is a real thing, but to take away the amount of control that's been taken away compared to the amount of deaths from this, there's something askew statistically about this.
And before I get
Yes,
to Lewis, I just want to say this quickly.
Well, hold on, wait. I'm going to finish the bit, by God, even if it kills me. So don't follow us on Facebook, although you probably should follow us on Facebook, but definitely follow us on Parler at Ben Stein. Now, Judah, go.
Thank you, Ben Boychik. I totally took away the train of thought that I was going to say, so I will let Lewis, who's been sitting quietly, go.
I can't help but think about Hubert Humphrey, who I think
I love him.
An incredible human being.
I love him. You and I,
kind.
Lewis, we're us on the same page. I know exactly what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say now.
And he was a pharmacist, the son of a pharmacist, and I only wish he was my pharmacist. But there was a time when the plutocrats, so-called, were associated with the Republican Party. The billionaire class, by and large, there are exceptions, but the billionaire class is now predominantly Democratic. Would Hubert Humphrey recognize this party?
I want to say a couple of things about Hubert Humphrey, if I may. I met Hubert Humphrey in 1960 when he was running for president against that John F. Kennedy. There was a fundraiser, and my parents went to it and brought me, and he was such a warm, likable guy. He lived in a very modest home in a very modest neighborhood in Bethesda, Maryland. Not a fancy neighborhood at all, not a fancy house at all. And someone I knew, me, asked him why he lived in such a modest house. And he said, because it's the only neighborhood I could find that wasn't restricted against Jews. And I refuse to live in a neighborhood that's restricted against Jews. You guys are too young to remember, but most of the really nice neighborhoods in big city suburbs were restricted against Jews. No Jews at all. Garnished. That's our Yiddish word again. So he was a really great man. When he ran against Kennedy in 1960, the Kennedys just buried him with money. They went around every county, every town, every ward in West Virginia, passing out money to make people vote for Kennedy. And John F. Kennedy was traveling around the state in a private plane, and Humphrey had an old bus. And there was a guy who was a folk singer in the back of the bus. And when the campaign was falling apart because of Kennedy's money.
What, they did something worse in West Virginia.
Well, but let me just say this.
Okay.
This folk singer in the back of the bus was picking away his guitar, and he was singing a Woody Guthrie song, modified for Humphrey. He said, I'm going to vote for Hubert Humphrey. I'm going to vote for Hubert Humphrey. And he was a man of the people. He was a really great guy. Okay,
the Kennedys enlisted FDR Jr. to write and sign a letter that was circulated throughout West Virginia suggesting that Humphrey was a draft dodger because he had not served in combat, and he did not serve during World War II because of some medical issue, and he tried to enlist. And the Kennedys used FDR Jr., Franklin Delano Roosevelt Jr. They enlisted him. They used the Roosevelt name to malign Humphrey in what was and still is an overwhelmingly Protestant state, to prove that the Kennedys, and John F. Kennedy in particular, as a Catholic, were electable in a Protestant state. And they did so with the help of the son of a Democratic icon.
Disgusting. And but let's get back to the present.
Yes.
I think the tone of today, tone of the horribly scary Saturday after this awful election fraud, should be don't give up, keep fighting. Ways will become clear to you. If it's just endlessly writing letters, if you're a lawyer, endlessly filing lawsuits are a major pain in the ass for people that you file them against. File them if you have a legitimate cause. Don't do it frivolously, as often as you can.
And you can donate money too to the cause.
Yes.
So I encourage, I don't have a lot of money, but I did donate a few dollars to the Trump thing, and Ben Boychik, go for it.
This is a very important point, and I want people to listen to me very carefully. There is one thing, a very important lesson is coming out of all of this and the experience of the past 4 years, and that is this. Well, it's really before that, but that is this. There is a lot of dumb money on the right. Conservatives are very good at putting their money into piss poor causes. I'm not saying Trump is one of those causes. I think Trump was a good cause. I'm actually referring to people who continue to support, for example, and I'm a competitor, so I don't mind saying this, people who can continue to give money to National Review. Bill Buckley did a great thing.
It used to be one of the best magazines in the world.
Used to be being the big word.
Used to be being the big word. And yet people continue to give money to National Review because they want to honor the memory of William F. Buckley Jr. Well, let me tell you, those guys in 2016 went out of their way to defeat Trump, and in 2020 didn't go out of their way to support his reelection because they found him, as I said a minute ago, aesthetically displeasing, and more so, which is fine. But if you want to fight and if you want to win, don't piss away your hard-earned money on causes that aren't going to help us. Help us by giving money to people and causes and groups that will actually do the job.
And I'm going to add, if I may, I think Louis Fine and I are both Louis, you're a lawyer, right?
Jailhouse.
No, he's a real lawyer.
I have a JD, but I don't practice.
Okay. I'm telling you, get behind these lawsuits about the voter fraud. Get behind them. I am sitting in my office. A few steps away from me is my computer. If Judah will show me how to use it, I turn it on. I donate a few bucks to the campaign to make sure that the Georgia Senate seat goes to Republicans. I can't, and I'm right. It's just such a good way to spend your money, even if you have very little of it, as I do.
Which goes back to what Ben Boychuk brought up before. These are ways of not being in despair, right? So we're making a concerted effort. I talk to Ben Boychuk probably way too many times a day. I talk to Louis way too many times a day. But that's because I've been in despair. And I talk to you, sir, every time I'm feeling down, or I call you guys and I'm not in despair. That's way number one, is by talking to people, knowing you're not alone. Number two, like you said, is with the lawsuits, but also we could all donate money if we can. Even if it's a few dollars, just donate.
You said a few shekels?
I was about to say shekel, yes. If you donate a few shekel to any of these, we are getting inundated with Trump legal stuff. Let's give. You know what?
If I may make indulge in a bit of special pleading, the Center for American Greatness, which is the parent organization of my magazine, American Greatness, is a 501c3, and it's perfectly tax deductible. And we're actually doing stuff. We're doing stuff,
and so
not screwing people over.
And so is the American Spectator. They're
yes, absolutely. I've been writing since 1972 or 3, and they're great people. And they are wonderful, wonderful, saintly people. They are saintly people.
Louis Fine is also a 501c3. So you could donate to Louis to help the fight. And here's the thing. Don't despair, like Ben Boychuk said at the beginning of the show. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I thought that was everything, Ben Stein, what the point I was going to bring up, Ben, before that I forgot, was, Ben, you weren't always like this. You believed in a lot of things. You believed the government in certain things about the Republican Party. You believed that they were telling us sometimes the truth, when in fact,
I still believe that they do sometimes, because I have a giant pile of books in my bedroom, most of which are pictures of naked women, of course. But I also have the Statistical Abstract of the United States. And believe me, I spend a lot of time reading it. Warren Buffett told me that's the only book he reads as a sort of hobby. And he's totally right. That's a great book. And Read that book, and if what your Republicans are saying correlates to what's in that book, you're on to something.
This
But
is like
please,
Ben Stein
don't give up,
after
please,
dark.
please, please, please,
He's
please.
like the Hugh Hefner of
wait.
Alan Greenspan.
What's her?
You're like the Hugh Hefner of Alan Greenspan.
Right. I want to imitate the hardest working man in show business, James Brown, and say, please, please, please. Or is that some other rock singer?
No,
James Brown.
What is it?
He was very active in criminal justice reform.
Please, please, please don't give up. We have just begun. Right? Please, please, please don't give up. Please.
And
You
if
know what else
anybody
James
ever
Brown said? You know what else James Brown said?
We're living in America.
Well, no, in reference to any political fraudster, blind man could see it. Blind man could see that Trump has massive support in this country.
We shall overcome.
Or as my mother would say, a blind man in a dark room could see.
We shall overcome, and we are not afraid.
And by the way, I just want everybody to know this is what hanging a drive to the desert with Ben Stein is like.
They shall not be moved.
With some naps,
shall not be moved.
Multiple personality disorder.
With some naps, with some naps in between. But the biggest thing I want people to know is you're not alone. Don't despair, like Ben Boychuk says. Donate. Figure out ways of filing lawsuits. Find good causes there, because they're like, American Spectator and of course American Greatness.
Drive around the neighborhood in your truck honking your horn.
It's exactly right. We're not giving this up. There is still time to fight.
We do not give up, even no matter what. We don't give up. We do not give up. There will be occasions to fight for what's right in America. Always. We lost this one so far. The outcome is yet to be determined. We keep fighting till our last breath, to the last bullet, to the last man or woman or trans.
I agree with you. And to quote the Beastie Boys, but a little bit off, we got to fight for our right, for our party, which is the party of Trump. I got the Beastie Boys. I'm from Brooklyn, and, I had to do it. And I got a good laugh out of Ben Boychuk. But Louis, I'll let you say something before we close.
Well, I want to quote another person from Brooklyn, because I am I'm far out in the borough where he hailed from in Bimini. To quote my spiritual guide, Adam Clayton Powell.
Yes,
Jr.
I knew that's what you were going to say. Yes. What did he say?
Got to keep the faith, baby.
Yeah.
We have faith, baby. So many bands tonight. It's great. We got James.
We're not afraid. We are not afraid. Do you know what I'm going to do after I leave here? I am going to cook dinner for my wife, for 2 nurses who are taking care of her, and they're fine people. We are not afraid. We're not afraid. We are not afraid. Come on, everybody, join in. We are not afraid. We are not afraid.
Everybody sing it. That's on Parler. That's on YouTube. That's with Ben Stein. Yeah.
In my heart, I know that I do believe.
And
we are not afraid today.
I hope the gospel. Yeah, everybody at home.
Power
this is Ben Stein. This is the man. This is the man that's going to comfort America.
We are not afraid.
Us. And
keep on keeping on.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of The World According to Ben Stein. Thanks again to Ben Boychuk of American Greatness. Where can people find you and American Greatness, Ben?
Go on Parler. I'm at B Boychuk 3. That's BBOYCHUK 3. American Greatness is on there. And of course, go to American Greatness. We've got all kinds of great stuff this weekend that you must read at www.amgreatness.com.
And Louis Fine, not where can people find you, but how do people find you?
Call or write Biden campaign headquarters, and I promise you the telegrams will reach me. I'm L-F-E-I-N, L Fine on Parler.
And with some amazing posts, I want to remember everybody to follow The World According to Ben Stein on YouTube.
You shall not be moved.
And at Ben Stein on Parler, and The World According to Ben Stein on Facebook. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel so we could keep this party and the singing going.
What, can we say one more thing, please, very quickly? One day, leaving, my wife and I were leaving the Yale Co-op in 1969, roughly, to go home for Christmas vacation. An African-American woman whom I knew from the Black Panther Party said to me, she knew me well, she said, "Ben, don't do it up too much and intensify the class struggle."
Thank you very much. And I just want to remind everybody, because somebody just brought this up, fists up, the Florida recount scandal lasted 37 days. We can make it through this. As Ben said, sing it. Say it one more time, Ben. What will we overcome?
We shall overcome, and we are not afraid. We are not afraid.
I'm Judah Friedman, and we will see you next time. Hold on a second, guys.